lost my way, stumble around all day. I try to stand up straight, but then I tumble down again.
Welcome to Talking with Giants. I'm your host, Scott Schilling. Always a pleasure to have you join us. Today's going to be an exceptional show. There's no doubt about that. Now let's start this the way we start every show, with my pregame prayer. Lord, allow the words that I share here today to serve 100% of the audience positively in one way, shape, or form. Only you know who you sent to hear this message. Allow me to do the best I can to deliver that message, be a vehicle and of service to you. See, that's all we can ever control in our walk, is a high intention and a low attachment. A high intention of imparting something good to each and every person we meet each day, and a low attachment as to what that might mean. You never know. If you have the ability to smile, which you all do, you can change somebody's life with just one simple smile. Now, I'm really excited today because my guest is a 9-year NFL veteran, had a great career in the NFL. The first time we met, we sat down, and it was like we had known each other forever. I'm pretty sure we're going to be good friends for a long time to come. He was drafted in the second round by the Arizona Cardinals, had the opportunity. The Cowboys should have taken him the pick before, but he ended up going to the Cardinals. We'll get into that story. Played at Auburn, was a two-sport athlete at Auburn with both baseball and football. I know another guy that did that now that I think about it. And but again, just a great, great guy on the Auburn Walk of Fame, all sorts of different things. My guest, Frank Sanders. Frank, thanks for being here, man.
Thanks for allowing me to be here.
You know, we sat in the first time we ever talked. It was like, I don't know about you, but it felt so comfortable so fast.
It did, honestly. I think there was a sense of vulnerability when we both met each other, and I think both of us came with an open expectation to whatever God wanted to do, and I think that in itself allowed us to relax and be ourselves, be comfortable in each other's presence, and we shared openly, and I think that that allowed us to feel like we are brothers in arms and in this walk together.
I think it's just so really cool, the conversation and how it transpired. And I was sharing with some friends, 2 hours and 45 minutes into it, you asked me, are you trying to get me on the show? I'm already on the show. And I said, no, I determined that a long time ago.
Yeah, I was definitely concerned. Like, well, you said, Frank, I'm a salesman at heart. But you kept sharing the same thing. I was like, are you trying to sell me on this thing? Because I'm already sold by now. And I think that I always take this approach, and I've been blessed with it when I meet good people. And I had a wonderful opportunity a couple of days prior to meeting you, was one of your best friends and colleague, Christian brother, as well as business partner, Bill. And he was like, hey, I want you to meet a friend of mine. And the spirit I got from him, and I believe the same he gave to me, or he received from me, him and his wife, Lori, received from me, was something that said to me, they said, I think you should meet my friend Scott. And I don't think they would have allowed me to meet you, being the good man that you are, would have allowed us to match. And I think that sometimes if you miss those moments, I did not want to miss that moment. So when Bill said, hey, I want you to meet my friend Scott, I said, let's do it. And here we are today.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate it. It was funny because, again, as we were talking, I said, no, I decided as soon as Bill called me, you said, so you took Bill's word? And I said, well, of course I did. And you said, well, so did I. I didn't even have to meet you either. So isn't it amazing when we listen to what God puts on our heart that, you know, how many times do we miss the opportunity to truly meet somebody, do something, make the next step? Somehow we forget to listen to that still small voice.
You know, it's so funny. When we were sitting at Rudy's the other day, I looked over my left shoulder and there was a kid. I don't know if you saw him. He had on a black jersey. He had number 26 at the bottom, but the top of him it said, it's not about you. And I'm sitting in Rudy for about 2 hours and we're talking and I'm saying like, what is this about? You know, and I'm, of course, just knowing that we're going to have a television program and knowing that we're talking, but I had to figure out, like, I'm on vacation. And to meet Bill and to come here and have this opportunity to sit and share is something that I had to looking over my shoulder and seeing the shirt saying, it's not about you, let me know. And you always kind of look for small signs. Never hurts to have small signs. Never hurt to have a little mist on the ground. It never hurts to have the dove appear back on the ark and say, hey, it's okay to go back out. And to look over my shoulder and see that was pretty special.
Well, that was one of the things that came up is some of those small signs. Now, you grew up in Fort Lauderdale, you had opportunity, you were being recruited by Miami, being recruited by Florida, and you ended up out of state.
I did.
How did it all come about?
Crazy thing about it is that there's no way that I should have went to Auburn University. Wide receiver, blue chip athlete, top tier athlete in the country, all state, all county for 2 years at Dillard High School. And I took a fun visit to Auburn University on the word of a friend of mine, Otis Mounds, that went prior to me. And Otis and I had grew up together, playing little league sports. Otis had got in some trouble his junior year, and but by the time he became a senior, there was all kind of questions about him. And blessing so have it, I will use that term, that Pat Dye of Auburn University came down and said, Otis, you're doing great as an athlete. I know you need to graduate. Otis went to night school and day school in order to graduate on time. On the football field, he had led the state in rushing yards and in touchdowns. But he said, if you graduate and you keep yourself clean, I'll give you a chance. Otis graduates, Auburn University gives him a scholarship, full ride scholarship to come play football. The following year, it's my turn, me and 3 other players. I had no reason going Auburn. I had Florida, who threw the ball a lot, Miami, #1 team in the country at the time. Pitt, I took as a visit because I wanted to see what it felt like to be up north in the snow. Florida boy, never seen snow in my life. So, hey, guess what? Let's take a trip. Take a fun trip, first trip, and Tennessee. And they all had good quarterbacks, and it was all passing schools. Auburn was a running school. I knew that 100%. But when I got to Auburn on my visit, there was 2 things that blessed me so much. Was that one morning I woke up and I was just came from having a good time that night before, doing all the recruiting visit things that they normally provide for you. And that morning I woke up after breakfast and I walked outside the stadium, walked outside the dormitory, and just outside of the distance you can see Auburn Jordan-Hare Stadium, and the baseball field was just below the dormitory, and then the stadium was just past that. And such a peace and a calm came over me that I had never felt before. I mean, I just there was no reason to choose Auburn. Everything in my mind would have been like, no, this is not the school for you because you don't pass the ball, they run the ball, the dormitories are nice, but it's not amazing. Things that you think about, you put on your list. And
Human things.
They were human things. And such a peace came over me that shook me. Right after that peace, I went in to meet the coach. And one of the #1 things my head coach, Otis Gray, who passed away a couple years back, said to us as athletes, he says, hey, if a coach can tear down another school and talk bad about another program, they have no confidence in themselves. So remember that when you go on visits. Took that to heart. A couple other programs had done some things or had said some things that were pretty crappy about other programs. But I say this because a lot of times kids tend to try to choose schools on exterior things, and they miss the little things. You say peace, like it's kind of hard to identify, but you know inside when there's a threat of another school trying to pressure you to go to their school, and then there's a side of you that said there's a peaceful side. I went to go visit the head coach, Coach Pat Dye at the time. Sat in the meeting with him. He talked no football. He had nothing to say about football. He sat back, his country guy, put his hands on his hips. He kicked his feet up on the table while he was talking to me. And here I am right across the way, and he was like, did you have a good time? I said, I did, Coach. He said, did Otis take care of you? I said, Coach, I had a great time. What do you think about Tommy Bowden, who was the offensive coordinator? I said, Coach, you talked about some good stuff. But then he said, how is April? How is James? How is Charles? And those are my brothers and sisters' names. So I leaned to the left to see if he had an earpiece, because I had no coach I'd ever known.
Nobody had ever asked you.
No one had asked me about my brothers and sisters.
It was all about football and athletics.
Right. And then he asked me specifically by name. And that was a blessing to me. It really was. And that solidified the deal. And at that moment I said, Coach, I'm coming to Auburn. He was like, don't you need to go talk to your mom? I said, Coach, my mom actually said, if I ever found peace or I had a place where I felt like I wanted to make that decision, she said, you could. And I told him at that time, he said, well, I thank you for coming. We would love to have you, and let's go share with everybody else. And when I did, we walked out of the door, and lo and behold, the other three recruits that came to Auburn from my high school, all 3 of those guys had committed to Auburn that day as well. And I don't know what it was about that place, but it had to be something beyond our reasoning, because Brian Robinson had committed to Florida State, Calvin Jackson and James Boston had committed to Tennessee, and I had told Coach Spurrier to save me a scholarship, and this was all our fifth visit to go on, and we all had such a wonderful time. And to me, that was such an ordained time that one of those ones you just can't take. I can't even take for granted, because that is the road to everything else that led to Frank Sanders even being here.
It's a great representation. Many times I think about, I've gotten really good at going back and studying those kind of incidents and seeing God's hand in it. You know, at the time I may not have recognized that, right?
Very true.
But now you go back to it and you go, you had this all planned out. Because like you say, too many times athletes today, and again, we're here in the state of Texas, and I was telling you about 3 of the stadiums, the high school stadiums. One that's 60 million has already been built, 162 that's being built, 163 that's about to be built. I mean, football's big here, right?
Very big.
But like, we wouldn't lose perspective at all. You know, I mean, that's in high school, right? And so all of a sudden you go down there, and I think sometimes you miss the meaning of those things in your life until you get a little more mature. That's actually code word for old. You get a little more mature and you can come back, right?
That's so true. I think, you know, I look back at that time, and there is no way none of us should have came. Right. I mean, maybe James Boston, because he was the running back, should have came. He should have been there. Tennessee and Florida State presented so much better options for Brian and Calvin. There was no reason for those guys to come. Auburn had a lot of depth, and they was not throwing the ball to receivers. And when you look back over your life, and that is the blessing, to be able to look back and find the footprints of God in your life, or find the touches of his handprint in your life, it makes it that much more special. And you can always kind of realize that in that decision I made then, what did I do then? What was happening then? What was the sign then? What was the signal then? I think one of my friends would always say their hands would start tingling.
Right.
You know, when they felt like they had to make a decision, they were trying to hear from God, their hand would start tingling. Another brother of mine, Aeneas Williams, would say when he would get up in the morning and he would go seek God and he would go pray about decisions he needed to make, he would look for the consistency of the thing he was praying for and the answer in the Word of God, as well as sometimes in the words of his children. And when he would get that confirmation, he would know that it was as if God was speaking to him. And I think sometimes, you know, we hear it because he's like a whisper. And he's saying stuff, and to me, I look back and I say, for all of us that went and made that decision, all of our lives are better because of it.
That's awesome. You know, then you told me that as your career went on, obviously you had the opportunity. You were touted as a late first round, early second round pick, and the Dallas Cowboys were actually sitting at your house.
Yes.
During draft day.
Yes.
Share that story, if you will.
You know, I just left the Senior Bowl, and the Senior Bowl was a great place. I took several visits to other teams prior to the draft. A guy from Dallas had said, "Hey Frank, if you get a chance, do you mind if I come stay at your house and sit in just to make sure who's calling? Because I know that we're looking for a receiver, but just not 100% sure how it's going to work." And I said, "Well, man, you're more than welcome. My family would love it. They invited you in without a problem." So he said, "Sure." The first round had gone by, and I'd heard all the reports that I'd either be in the top 4 receivers taken in the draft, or I'd be a late first round or early second round. And I said, well, either way, it didn't matter to me where I was drafted. I just wanted to be drafted by a team or somebody I could be mentored by, because I knew I had work ethics. I knew I had a determination to do or to be good at the next level. I ain't say great, because great is something where you don't know you're there until you're actually having the chance to balance out between the talent that's already there. So I just wanted a mentor, someone that can teach me, and I knew then from there I can take the reins at that time. Dallas had the 45th pick. The Arizona Cardinals had the 46th pick. Somewhere along the lines, the phone rang, and let me back up real quick. Prior to that, my family was going crazy. They thought I wanted to go to San Fran. Some wanted me to go to Miami because I'd have been a home team. They could come see me play, and they thought that would be pretty nice. And I was like, well, you know what? Draft day is so much energy in the room. There's fear, there's concerns. That's like a parent with a child getting a bunch of letters to a school to attend a college, because you really don't know. The difference between the draft and a kid getting letters is you get to make the choice.
Right.
When you get the letters. When you're getting drafted, that's a different type of panic. It's a different type of emotion. There's a different type of feel because, and then every slot that goes by determines your pay. You know, if you get drafted in the top first, you're making top money. If you don't, as it keeps going, your money starts lessening. And I don't know how family members are thinking about the money, and as a player, he just wants to get drafted. Well, I walked down the hallway and I said, God, I don't care where you send me. Just send me someplace warm and a team that needs me. And in the midst of that, maybe about 5 or 10 minutes later, my phone rings. And the Arizona Cardinals had called. And it was Dave Atkins, the former coach who had saw the Senior Bowl with previously, had told me, said, Frank, Buddy Ryan likes you. Just stay tuned and keep doing what you're doing. I said, okay. I had not heard of Arizona Cardinals at all. I didn't know anything about them. I only knew them from the St. Louis Cardinals days back in that time. And they were not a great team at that time. My favorite team at the time was Dallas Cowboys. And so a guy from Dallas in my house, I'm thinking, this is great. God, I don't care where you send me. Send me someplace warm and a team that needs me. 5, 10 minutes later, my phone rings, guy calls, picks up the phone, I answer, I tell the guy from Dallas, hey, Dallas, Arizona's on the phone. Arizona's on the phone. He grabs his flip phone, he calls the war room, he's trying to make it happen. Next thing you know, and with the 46th pick in the draft, the 45th pick in the draft, the Dallas Cowboys select Sherman Williams from University of Alabama, running back.
Right.
And I knew you guys needed a running back because Emmett was in probably his 8th year, and he needed a backup. Sherman Williams had proved to be a pretty good running back, so I wasn't really mad at that pick. I was a little disappointed. But then Arizona had picked me at the 46th pick. And I cannot tell you how that little prayer was so ordained, if it's the words I want to say that came out of my mouth, because I don't want to play anywhere cold. I hated the cold. I hated it with the cold with a passion. But Arizona's 118 degrees sometimes in the summer. But the best thing for me is that I got there and they had men who were living for Christ. Now, when I say this, you gotta take what I'm saying in the magnitude of it, because there's a high population of people that just do not believe that you could serve God in the NFL with the fame, the fortune, and the females. It's just, as a young man, no one believes that. It's like, it's unless you was raised that way to believe you could do it, everyone thinks about the temptations and the challenges and the stuff you're going to deal with off the field, and the women. If you had a girlfriend, she's definitely it's going to blow her mind. And then you got family members who are thinking about finances and how their lives are going to change and be better. Nothing in my mind, nothing had prepared me for that move, for that transition of that prayer, to take me to Arizona Cardinals and to see men, Aeneas Williams, Anthony Edwards, Eric Swan, Kevin Knox, Michael Bankston, 7 other guys that I could just rattle off that was on the team that was in the process of growing for Jesus, men of God, or brothers in Christ, or BICs that we would call ourselves. And it was the best thing for me.
That was one of the pictures I actually found when I was looking you as a prayer warrior, that you were leading at Auburn, correct?
Yeah.
After the game, that's on the screen there.
Craziest thing about it is, I knew of Jesus through my mom and my grandparents. I knew of him. You know, you're raised in a family of spiritual people, of people of faith, then you tend to yourself assimilate to that. That was my last game versus Alabama, which we lost. I needed prayer that time tremendously, trust me.
The consoling prayer.
I needed a consoling prayer
That's right.
at that time. But in truth, I didn't believe that I could do that walk and honestly serve God in college, because I felt like it was too many temptations. There was too many tests, too many trials, too many opportunities to make immature decisions. Ones you just kind of like, they're just opportunities fall at your doorstep. Hey man, what you doing? We're going to the party, let's go. Like, that's just too many opportunities of immature opportunities, too many immature opportunities in college. And I never wanted to play with God. I never wanted to play that game. And when I got to the NFL, that was when I was like, well, you know what? I'm not going to play the game, but I'm going to address my life and cut down in certain areas. And I want to micromanage myself. I'm not going out. I'm not going to drink. I'm going to be a disciplined man. I'm going to eat and eat healthy and go home and get my rest and study my playbook. But to watch these men on the field, them serve God and love God openly and publicly was life-changing to me. And sometimes you just need a visual example. And that's what I needed in my life. And that's what that choice or that draft pick or that prayer happened for me. I needed a visual example on how to live this thing, and they were that.
Well, that's what we were talking about when we were sitting together, and I said that 37 times in the Bible, Jesus speaks, and he says, follow me. I mean, that's what we're really asked to be, is that living example. And it's such an honor. Actually, a show that we filmed a little bit ago with Chad Hennings, another 3-time NFL Super Bowl champ, and just a great man of God, who very similar, Pat. So it is possible. Obviously, you've done it, you've lived it, and now, more importantly, man, we could do this for hours like we did. But I want to get into what you're doing now. You're helping athletes. You're helping student athletes, but you're emphasizing the walk. You're emphasizing. Well, you tell us. How are you coaching kids differently today, based on what you've lived in your career?
Well, I mean, you meet a kid or an athlete, because I've had the opportunity to train college young men that are about to be NFL players, and they're going to be grown men in a minute. Once you start making your own check and your own pay, you become a grown man at some point in time. And an athlete is a person blessed and gifted with talents they neither earned nor deserved, but was given. He took his talents and he yielded them to someone else, a coach, a mentor, a trainer, to make them better. In the scope of a team, he learned some certain things: discipline, humility, teamwork, ethics, a playbook, how to be selfless. Everything that I've learned in this game, using the mentors and the people that have shared and have taught me, I just try to pass those things back on. And the best thing I've been able to do is to listen and try to explain from a mature perspective how to transfer or how to take their talents and to maximize them at their best. I like to get into the psychology of an athlete. I like to get into the physiology of an athlete, but more importantly, there's a dynamic in an athlete that matters more than anything, and you just need to find out what makes him tick. And then I've been blessed with the ability to listen and then associate the Word of God, life lessons, and the experience of being in that same position, and try to make that person become the best athlete they can. And that's what I've been able to do.
I mean, I think it's absolutely awesome. As we were talking, you were talking about, there's a lot of natural talent. I mean, we see it here in the state of Texas, especially. I mean, there's some beasts.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some kids that are bigger in high school than in the NFL was in your playing days, and in the Big Ten, my playing days. And it's just as absolutely amazing. But what I loved is when I first heard that one of the things you do is you say, it ain't about you. Yeah. Chill.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The way you kind of, and I just love the way that you kind of help them gain greater perspective.
Yeah. It's there are different timelines of an athlete. If you're a freshman in high school or a sophomore in high school, and you're getting letters and you're getting opportunities at colleges, and everyone's talking about you, you got 2,000 likes on Facebook, or you got people loving you and punching your like button, and they're looking at your huddle films, great. That's good. You should feel proud of that. That's a proud moment. But in reality, it means nothing until you are a senior that has the grades or the GPA and also have passed the SAT or an ACT, and you stayed healthy, that you're worthy of that scholarship actually can manifest itself into the next phase of your life. You have to have a bigger perspective. In the now, it's cute that everyone likes you, and the likes are only telling you that you are the reward, or the hard work that you put in is paying off. You're putting in that work and someone's recognizing that, that's great. But from a team perspective and a holistic perspective, you still need to back down a little bit. You still need to realize that there's other phases. I'm not saying temper your hunger, because that should only make you hungry. One of the things I focused on was being the best every year I can be. If that's a teammate, be the best teammate you can be. If there's someone that's less, if you're first string and there's someone second string and you're not trying to make him better, something's wrong. If you're so shady or skeptical in your abilities that you won't tell the kid behind you who you're leaving for the program what things to do and what not to do, then you're not passing it on. It makes no sense for you not to be passing it on. That's a sense of humility, of transferring information, and then the blessings flow to you because you know you're giving it.
I love the philosophy. I love the idea. We used to say in Wisconsin, the old German heritage, right? Wie geht so soon old and so late schmat.
That's exactly what I tell them.
I didn't realize you spoke German. So, but I mean, it really is like that, right? I remember my mom used to say that you know, we actually do know a few things, and I just am so excited to meet you, to know you, and want to help you share this message in any way possible because it's such a worthy message. I'm a believer. If you're in Texas, you got to believe in athletics.
Absolutely.
And I was very blessed in my career. But the point is that there's so much that can be learned if it's done right. And what you're working to do is have them do it right. We only got a little more than a minute and a half of your, Frank. What would you like to leave with everybody?
You know, honestly, for me, Romans 12:1-2, I beseech you therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, that you yield your body as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable unto him. But the best part, it says, do not be conformed to the patterns and the ways of this world. And that, to me, is the challenge for us all. The Bible says in the following verse that you might know what God's good and acceptable and perfect will is for your life. And I think that sometimes is the challenge. You can't always be conforming. And you always have to have a bigger perspective in areas of your life that will allow you to be able to experience God's good, acceptable, and perfect will. Best thing I always say is be a memory maker. But be a memory maker for good. That's the best person because people always remember how you make them feel more so than what you always do for them.
Man, that's awesome. You know, what's so exciting about this is I'm a strong believer that God's plan and timing is perfect. And what you don't know is we had a guest that was scheduled to tape today that something came up. And normally you freak out about that a little bit, and I didn't. I went to God and I said, God, it's your plan, it's your timing. And all of a sudden I got a call and said, you know what, I got a great guest for you. And you know what, they were right. Frank, it's been awesome, man. I truly appreciate you. I wish we could do far more of this. You know, here at Talking with Giants, we're here to be a resource of all things good. This is our portal of good. Make sure you join us every Saturday, 9 a.m. Central Time. God bless.
Hi, this is Scott Schilling, your host for Talking with Giants. Recently, I discovered that somewhere around the world, a child dies every 5 seconds due to malnutrition, the lack of access to clean drinking water, or insect-borne diseases. It's a human tragedy that's so easy to prevent. In fact, when I began looking into what people like you and me can do, I discovered a company who's sending life-saving products to the world's most needy children and their communities. World Impact Solutions is dedicated to address these issues head-on. Could you join me in this mission? Simply go to wissaveslives.com and purchase any or all of the life-saving products in any quantity. World Impact Solutions will make sure that children in more than 70 countries will benefit from your generosity. I know I can count on you. World Impact Solutions makes it simple.